This weekend on the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House.
I'm David Dworkin, along with my wife Wendy. We're the new owners of the Rochester Rhinos. We've got big plans in store for the team.
Hi, I'm Doug Miller, active soccer player for the Syracuse Sliver Knights, and I'm going to tell you why U.S. soccer is changing the birth year matrix.
And I'm Mike Catalana. I'll tell you who's going to get us closest to a championship.
And I'm Bill Pucko, remembering Bobby Wanzer. Join us this weekend on the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House. The Brew House was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewHouse.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the mighty Genesee Brew House. I'm Bill Pucko, and it's a pleasure this week to be joined by Doug Miller, who hardly needs an introduction, except that you're an active player again for the Syracuse Sliver Knights. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
46
Excited.
years old, with the goal, I'm sure, to play till you're 50.
I think I'm more like 36, just celebrating my 10th anniversary a few times.
Very nice. Co-host Mike Catalana, 13 WHAM News. Good to see you, Mike.
Good to be back.
And it is a real pleasure to introduce, I guess, to the Rochester community, David Dworkin, who is the new owner of the Rochester Rhinos and has somehow, over all these years, managed to keep a pretty low profile. How and why, sir?
I'm a private person, and this Rhinos thing was new for me. I'm not accustomed to being out in the public, but I'm here and I'm excited, and it's a great time to be in Rochester.
What's the short version of how this happened? The short version. Because I know it's pretty
Well, the short
detailed.
version will be short because from the moment I found out it was for sale until we were done was 21 days. So it actually is a short version. The quick version is the team was listed for sale by someone in Sacramento who just in passing mentioned to a friend of his that he was selling a soccer team in Rochester. That person he was talking to was one of my partners in the Sacramento Kings. I got an email, spoke to him, got some information. Within a week's time, I knew a fair amount about what was going on with the team, looked through all the financials. It became public that the league took the team back, and I had a week head start, basically, and within 2 weeks and being hauled up in a room for 14 hours over 2 days, came to terms with the league. And here I am.
What constitutes success in a venture like this? And Doug, you've been in it too. You mentioned the W League. You were a sports owner. Mm-hmm. Minor league sports isn't a place to go if you're intending to build wealth, is it?
Not based on the projections that I put together. It's a very heavy lift, but I think what it comes down to is your sense of community and your belief that you can do better than the previous people before you. I mean, if you look at any franchise that's sold, historically, the new owners always come in and say, we're going to do better, we're going to enhance the fan experience, we're going to make the product on the field and around the field something we can be proud of, and you hear that from everyone. And Ron Kraft, I've been reading a lot about sports, said that you throw the financials out the window when you buy a sports team. And to some extent you do, but you do it because you love sports and you do it because you think it's good for the community.
Well, when you talk about what he's got facing you with the Rhinos, I mean, the on-field product was a big success last year, right? Bob Lilly and the team win. But the rest of it, and we've talked about it many times in the show, when Doug's here or not here, on what they had going back then that elevated that franchise to a different status. Not only were they winning, it was the place to go in local sports. And it actually, I think, hurt the Amherst a little bit. It hurt the Red Wings. It hurt everybody. Not that that was the intention, but it became the franchise. And unfortunately, it's kind of lost a little bit of that over this last period of time.
And that's one of the things that I keep looking at is you look at an attendance of 10,000 people over at Frontier Field for the first year where the Red Wings were still playing at Silver Stadium, and you look at that and say, soccer was down here as far as a sport worldwide 20 years ago, and now soccer has become such a popular sport, yet the attendance of the Rhinos has gone backwards. And to me, that's an opportunity for us.
What Doug, you said it's community involvement. That's the strike point for you, isn't it?
It's huge. Community involvement, motivating, inspiring, educating, the community, and getting them back on our side. When we were successful, the players that were there, were always involved in the community. I did probably 150 appearances all the time. Why? Because I want to make it much more difficult for the Rhinos to ever get rid of me. And then, hey, there was success on the field. But again, you need to inspire, you need to, build that culture that, it had back then. And yeah, it was the place to be. But if you name players, you're naming players from 1996, 97, 98, 99, and not 2016. And, if the players don't buy into it, then they don't need to be here. You have to find players who are willing to sacrifice whatever it is for the organization. And that's going to be the key.
And Bill, we talk about the place to be. The place was Frontier Field. And then the challenge now is making the soccer stadium the place to be, which has been a struggle, not just for soccer, but for anything that's been going on. They're making that the place people want to go to.
Well, we're going to continue this discussion in our second segment here, the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the Money Genesee Brew House, when we return. For over 25 years, Hillside Work Scholarship Connection has empowered youth to embrace their dreams of college and careers. Thanks to a dedicated staff and employment partners, every year Hillside helps more than 4,000 young men and women move closer to their life goals. Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box, brought to you by the mighty Genesee Brew House. And this portion of the Press Box is brought to you by our friends at the Hillside Family of Agencies.
Yeah, when you think about this Rhinos team, though, and you think about the success on the field, translating that to people who want to go back week in, week out, groups, all those things, into that atmosphere. And I think that's the challenge. And Bill talked about, the idea of how you do things to get people to make it home again. You just got started, though. This has to be, knowing Rochester's got to help you,
right.
But knowing what some of the successful teams like the Red Wings or the Amerks have done has to feed into what you're going to look to do with the Rhinos.
And you're right. And I think you need a reason to go. I mean, as you said, the product is great. I mean, how often does someone buy a team that is a defending champion? I mean, it's rare if you think about it. When usually people buy teams, their records are, average or poor. You don't usually sell on a high note. And the fact that we are the defending champions is a good thing. The product is great. I'm amazed how many people I've spoken to since I've been involved that didn't even know they won a championship. And they live in Rochester. So there clearly needs to be the outreach that you'd expect, but it comes down to the experience. Are people going to have a reason, as you said, to come there year in or game in and game out? And that's what we're going to do. And I think the answer is yes. I mean, we're looking at all different ways to enhance that fan experience, from food to creating, obviously, again, on the field is easy, but what do people want? And that's part of what we've got to get to.
You were there when it was great, and you operate and you feel free to plug it. You operate your own local sports business, and and it's profitable. Is this entire thing here profitable? Is there a model that works?
I think there is. I think first and foremost, from the professional side, you have to know that it's the entertainment business, and you're fighting over entertainment dollars. You have a lot of minor sports teams that are here. So how do you get them to come out to your product in a time when there's a lot going on? Cornhill Fest, all these summer events that are going on. Have the players at the Cornhill Fest, and then bring have a march down just like they do in Seattle, to come to a game. The soccer clubs that are in Rochester, how do you get them to believe in, hey, we're here to engulf everybody, to educate, motivate, and inspire, because these kids need role models. And right now our role models aren't very good that are out there, and kids are finding themselves in predicaments that they shouldn't be. So it's first knowing that you're in the entertainment business, but how else are you going to generate revenue streams?
Yeah, and also knowing the perceptions that you're dealing with as you start. Stadiums, problems with the scoreboards, problems with the field, been problems with the locker rooms, the perception of no parking, the perception of not an easy neighborhood to be at. Some of those things certainly have validity to them. Others have become those Rochester things that people say all the time, and those are things I think you're really fighting in that stadium, regardless of who is playing in there. because it's happened. I've seen it even in the high school games. I know people have felt more comfortable in their mind, or at least have said to me, "Oh, I like going to Fisher, or I like going to U of R more than I like going to Sahlen Stadium." I think that's what you're fighting, at least initially, but I think you know that going in.
Well, and the good news is that we're spending $600,000 for a new field, which everyone is excited about. We lost, the U.S. team wasn't coming because they were fearful of injuries. So you think about Section 5 playing on a brand new field. I mean, how exciting is that? Plus our team. The scoreboard, we have a commitment to get that fixed before the start of the season, so that one's done. There's a plumbing problem that you didn't mention. We figured out what that is. That's an $80,000 fix. That's going to get done. So some of those sort of what I'll call capital items, we're going to fix those. But you're right. I mean, it's a block and a half from Frontier Field, and to some people, it's a different zip code. And all we can do is work on the experience, why you need, what's there, but more importantly, signage. I mean, not as though that a sign is going to make you feel better, but when I've seen it, a sign that says stadium parking, and it points that way to someone's driveway. I mean, that's not the kind of signage you want. Yeah. Or stadium this way, but the stadium's this way. So we've got to fix some of that. But to your point, I think we're going to get there. And my wife, Wendy, and I, who are the two owners of the team, have said you'll see a little improvement this year, and you'll see a lot of improvement next year. I mean, we're also going to work on concessions. Frontier has great food. We've got to improve our food as well.
In 15 seconds, give me the dream. What's you pictured far down the road? What's the ideal? What's something you really want to put your mark on?
I can do it in less than that. I want to close to a sold-out stadium. I would take 10,000 people or more. I'd like those people to come from all over, not just in Rochester, that it becomes more of a sort of a Western New York facility. Mm-hmm. And of course, you want to keep winning. I mean, those are the biggest things for us.
This is the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the mighty Genesee Brew House. This portion brought to you by the Hillside family of agencies. Like it or not, it's next. As we go to break, it is time for the Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning Trivia Question of the Week. When you're searching for a local heating and air conditioning contractor, look no further than one of the most reliable teams in the area at Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning. Is called Turnbull at 343-2005. As we come back from the break, time for the answer to the Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning Trivia Question of the Week. When you're searching for a local heating and air conditioning contractor, look no further than one of the most reliable teams in the area at Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning. Just call 343-2005. See New York in a whole new way. Amtrak is offering a 15% discount for all travel inside New York State and to Montreal. Visit Amtrak.com for the See New York discount. Safe, comfortable, affordable, and easy. Amtrak. Enjoy the journey. Welcome back. This is the mighty Rochester Press Box, brought to you by the Genesee Brew House. This portion of the Press Box is brought to you by Amtrak Trains. Enjoy the journey. It's like it or not. Mike, like it or not, Peyton Manning walks away after the Super Bowl.
Oh, I like it. I think he knows he is too. We heard supposedly a little whisper there, him saying this may be my last rodeo, that he said to Belichick. Look, he's of that age now. He's accomplished everything in the game. He's gotten back to a Super Bowl in a year he had no business getting there. He had a bad year. He wasn't even necessarily the starter, but it all aligned for him. And then he played a nice game manager game, and in that sense, outplayed Brady in that game, which is kind of funny. It would have been 3 of 4 championship games against Brady. They asked more of Brady in the game than they did of Manning. He goes into the Super Bowl. What I hope for him is it isn't like what happened with the Seattle game a couple of years ago where they got blown out. But I think if he plays pretty well, and certainly for him to win the game, I think it'd be fantastic. But even if they don't win, at least his last game would be the 50th Super Bowl of all time, his 4th Super Bowl. But I think it's time for him to go.
As a guy who apparently can't do it, how hard is it to walk away?
It's difficult to walk away. I mean, because that's what he knows. For him, walking away, it's at a good spot in his career. I mean, for him to risk his life in regards to breaking a neck or and being crippled, I wouldn't do that. But I hope he truly hope he wins for his sake, because he's a class act, and I think it's good for football.
David, like him or not, the Sacramento Kings.
I like them a lot. Although we lost to Portland.
We should explain that when you say we, there's a reason for that.
We is me and others. I am one of the owners of Sacramento Kings. the former Rochester Royals, which, as I mentioned to you off camera, was owned by a relative of our family's, Lester Harrison. Like him a lot, love DeMarcus Cousins. Rondo's, he's had more triple doubles than anyone this year. DeMarcus had 56 points or 54 points 2 games ago. Love him. Love the fact that we're tied in the 8th playoff spot, but that puts us in a collision course with Golden State.
And keeping Rochester's history, that's an interesting aspect to this.
They've been great. They actually have had retro Rochester games for us with black and white jumbotrons. They've been extraordinarily connected to Rochester.
Awesome. Quick one, Doug, like him or not, the Golden State Warriors, the idea of that dominant team.
I enjoy it. I mean, that's what dynasties are made of. There's not parity in the league per se. But when you put, a caliber of team, we somewhat had a dynasty, here in Rochester with the Rhinos. People feared us before they even came in to play us. So as long as you can build it and you have the financial backing to make it happen, it's part of the history and the game.
We would have thought parity used to be a good thing, but now you're finding that it's not.
Well, it can work both ways, too, because when you do have that team out there that everybody, the perception is, look at what they've done recently to the Cavs, what they did to the Bulls, and certainly what they did to the Spurs the other night. But I just have a feeling with the Spurs that they're not done with them yet. They embarrass them, really embarrass them, and they're taking a bit of a step back, and we'll see when it comes time. Also, we get to see whether they can win 73 games and, set the record, too,
that
for
might be
a
fun.
season.
I think they're going to try it.
I think they look like they are, especially when they have games where the starters aren't playing in the fourth quarter.
There's a Carolina Panthers element to this team, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, except that the difference is this team has already won a championship, so they can play a little looser than normally when a team like Carolina, no matter how many games they've won, they still haven't won the Super Bowl yet, whereas they've already come off a championship. Now it's kind of piling on a little bit.
This portion of the Rochester Press Box has been brought to you by Amtrak Trains. Enjoy the journey. Unfinished Business is next. The Rochester Press Box Stat of the Week, brought to you by Cariglio's Pizza, with 5 locations serving the Rochester area. Visit carigliospizza.com today.
The new caramel macchiato at Dunkin' Donuts. Let handcrafted layers of espresso, milk, and caramel-flavored swirl uplift your mood. Indulge in a hot or iced macchiato today. America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box. This portion of the Press Box is being brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. We call it unfinished business. And Doug, you do the honors.
As U.S. Soccer initiates the calendar year birth date versus the school year birth date, coaches, clubs, and parents are kind of upset about the situation. It's something that needs to change. FIFA has done this for forever, and U.S. and Canada are the only 2 countries that are currently using a school birth date. So coaches, parents, clubs, enjoy the change. Don't worry. After a year, it's all going to be fixed again. So enjoy the journey, because soccer is a journey. It's not the game that teaches you. It's the life lessons and the memories that you make.
They could have grandfathered this in and not disrupted everything, couldn't they?
But you could grandfather and start at U8 and then work your way up. But again, U.S. Soccer, they're not trying to compete in our local leagues, our regional leagues. They're trying to compete on a global level, and they want to be number 1 in the world. So, change is hard, but we have to deal with change. Embrace it, and support it. And in a year's time, you're not going to know, anything.
David Dworkin.
This past weekend, Rochester lost a true gentleman and basketball icon in Bobby Wanzer, who passed away at 94. I had the good pleasure of meeting Bobby on many, many occasions. He played for our cousin Lester. He was a 5-time NBA All-Star on the 50-51 championship team, coached the Cincinnati Royals, and was Fisher's first coach for 24 years. He was an extraordinary player, 90% free throws, which was a record that standed for quite some time. One story I want to share that I've heard multiple times from Coach Harrison and Bobby was they were playing a game back when in a gymnasium, and Bobby went to take his shot. His momentum carried him past the hoop, out a set of double doors into a snowbank outside of the gym. The doors closed behind him. He was locked out, and the game is going 4-on-5, and no one realized Bobby was missing. Eventually, Harrison looks around and says, "Where's Bobby?" They go outside to get him. He comes back in, doesn't miss a beat, gets right back into the rotation and starts playing. Days have changed, of course, and basketball certainly has evolved a great deal, but Bobby was one of the great ones, and all of Rochester misses him.
Hall of Famer, 1951 NBA champions for Rochester. You let that sink in.
Yeah, thinking of champions, we need one around here, right? Western New York, our area to have one. And I don't know who's going to get there first. And when you look at what the Bills are trying to do, they're trying to get close. But I keep watching this Sabres team play. And I got to tell you, I am so impressed by Jack Eichel. Not just because he's putting up numbers, because that kid already looks on the ice like the ice and the moment is not too big for him. Sure, this team is still closer to 30, and maybe at 30, than they are to number one. But you see something special with this kid. It took a long time to get there. It took a long time to bring him in. But now that he's here with the Sabres, you watch him play, they have somebody to build around. And you'd think that Sabres team eventually is going to bring a championship to Western New York.
This portion of the Original Rochester Press Box is brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Doug, thanks very much. Good luck with your excitement in Syracuse, and we wish you the best of luck. Get some points for those guys.
You got it.
Michael, great as always.
Thank you.
And David Dworkin, real pleasure meeting you and listening to the stuff you have to say. I think we're in good hands. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week on the Original Rochester Press Box.